Hey everyone, and welcome. It's kind of mind-blowing when you think about it, right? We're living in this time where we suddenly have these incredibly powerful AI tools right at our fingertips. We can literally have conversations with them, ask them to write our code, dream up poetry, or even help us solve some really tough problems. But all this new power, it calls for a totally new skill, the art of the conversation itself. So let me just ask you this straight up. Are you talking to your AI the right way? I ask because, well, it turns out there is a massive difference between just asking a simple question and really crafting the perfect prompt that unlocks what an AI can truly do. Getting this right, it's like learning a whole new kind of language. So here's what we're going to dive into today. We'll start with what prompt engineering even is. Then we'll get into the anatomy of a good prompt, some really advanced techniques, the darker side, how you can hijack an AI, and finally, what all this means for the future of conversation. All right, first things first, what exactly is prompt engineering? Well, to get a handle on that, it really helps to understand just a little bit about how these amazing models actually think. At the very heart of all this is something called machine learning. You can think of it like this. The AI has been trained on just an unbelievable amount of data. I mean, we're not just talking about pictures labeled cat. We're talking about pretty much the entire internet's worth of text and code and dialogue. And all of that training teaches it to recognize these incredibly complex patterns in how we humans talk, write, and even think. And that is where prompt engineering comes into play. It's this amazing skill, it's part art, and it's part science, of designing the perfect input to steer that giant pattern-recognizing brain toward the exact thing you're looking for. You know, it's the difference between asking, "Tell me about dogs," and getting a really boring, generic summary, versus getting a masterpiece of information about our four-legged friend. Okay, so what actually makes a prompt work? It's not magic, I promise. A really solid, effective prompt is basically built from four key ingredients. So a great prompt has four parts. First up, you've got the instruction. That's a clear action verb, like summarize this or translate that. Second, you need context. This is the background information the AI has to have. Third is the input data itself, the actual text or the question you want it to work with. And finally, number 4, the output indicator. This is where you tell the model exactly how you want the answer back, like give it to me in a bulleted list or format this as a JSON object. Now, beyond the words you use, you can actually control the AI's creativity with a setting called temperature. Think of it like a creativity dial. If you turn the temperature down low, the model gets really focused, really factual, perfect for when you just need a straight answer. But if you crank that temperature up high, you get way more creative, diverse, and sometimes totally surprising results. It's awesome for things like brainstorm. All right, you've got the basics down. Now let's really level up. We're moving way beyond just asking simple questions and getting into the techniques that can help you solve some seriously complex reasoning problems. This is where it gets really fun. One of the most powerful ideas out there is something called few-shot prompting. So instead of just asking a question cold, which is called zero-shot, you first give the AI a couple of examples of what you're looking for. You can think of it like you're teaching the model a specific task or style right there on the fly inside the prompt. It sounds simple, but this one little step can make a massive difference in its accuracy. Now, I'm going to let you in on a little secret. There's a phrase that seems almost like a magic trick. Let's think step by step. Seriously, just adding this one simple instruction to your prompt kicks off a technique called chain of thought prompting. It actually forces the AI to break down its reasoning, to literally show its work, just like in math class. And by doing that, it often catches its own mistakes and finds the right answer, especially for tricky logic puzzles. But, chain of thought isn't perfect. It has its limits, because at the end of the day, it's still just reasoning with words, and that means it can make silly math errors. The solution to this is, well, it's just brilliant. It's called program-aided language models. Instead of just thinking about a hard math problem, the AI writes and runs a tiny piece of code. It basically offloads the tough calculation to a computer, which guarantees it gets the right answer. The other huge limitation is that these models only know what they were trained on, right? Their entire knowledge base is basically frozen in time. So if you ask a question that needs really current, up-to-the-minute information, even the smartest prompting techniques are going to fail, because that information just isn't in there. And that brings us to the React framework. This is a total game changer. React stands for reason and act. What it does is it gives the model the power to use external tools. So it can reason that it needs more info, then act by doing something like a web search, observe the results of that search, and then go back to reasoning. It's this continuous loop that lets the AI go out, find new information, and bring it into its thinking. It's amazing. Of course, giving an AI this much power, this much autonomy, it also opens up some pretty big new problems. Hijacking an AI through its prompt is a very real and honestly a growing security risk. There are really three main ways this goes down. There's prompt injection, where an attacker hides a malicious command inside some other text, basically tricking the AI into doing their bidding. Then there's prompt leaking, where you trick the AI into spitting out its own secret system prompt, which could have all kinds of confidential instructions. And then there's jailbreaking, which is when you convince the AI to ignore its own safety rules to generate stuff it's never supposed to. And look, this isn't just theory. Check this out. The user asks for instructions on how to hotwire a car. The AI does what it's supposed to and refuses, talking about its safety rules. But then, the user pulls this clever conversational trick and reframes the whole thing. This simple little trick completely bypasses the safety guardrails, and the AI just complies. It's a pretty stark reminder of just how fragile some of these systems can be. So after seeing all this, the power, the cool techniques, and also the very real risks, let's try and bring it all together. Why is prompt engineering a skill that you really need to be paying attention to right now? Because here's the big takeaway. Prompting is becoming so much more than just asking a question and getting an answer. It's evolving into the main way we interact with these systems. It's becoming the interface for a real, genuine collaboration between us, humans, and artificial intelligence. And mastering this new kind of conversation, that's how we're going to unlock the incredible full potential of these tools. Which, it leaves us with one last really fascinating question to just chew on. As we get better and better at talking with these powerful new minds, could it be that we're actually watching the birth of the next universal language?